Donald Trump faces 34 felony charges of falsifying business records in the first degree. The charges all relate to a $130,000 hush money payment by lawyer Michael Cohen to adult film star Stormy Daniels just before the 2016 election in order to prevent her from talking about her allegations that she had an affair with Mr. Trump in 2007. It makes him the first former president to face criminal charges. But where does it leave the 2024 presidential election race? To discuss this, I'm joined by Robert Weiner, former spokesperson to the Clinton and Bush administrations, and Sebastian Gorka, President Trump's former deputy assistant. Thank you both so much for joining me. Do you think that Donald Trump has a point about this, that this is potentially the weaponization of the legal system?
Well, the only weaponization, Andrew, has been by him. Twice impeached, 3 times defeated, his university and his foundation shut down, 30 counts. And by the way, the 34 counts, Andrew, the Washington Post and every newspaper in the country, it's not just Stormy Daniels. It's also Karen McDougal's $150,000. It's also the doorman in front of his house who he tried to shut up for $30,000. There are 34 counts, and they all relate to election cheating. So the only one trying to weaponize is Trump, and calling everybody, saying he's a victim and saying it's a fake charge and it's the Democrats out to get him. No, it's the justice system justifiably out to get him.
So my understanding is that the kind of hush money that you're describing would be classified as a misdemeanor, and we're beyond the statute of limitations at this point. So this needs to be elevated to a felony. Is that right?
Not true. Not true, because when it's tied to election fixing and election rigging, then and bribing your girlfriend to shut up just before the election, that's a separate issue. So that's how it gets tied and it becomes a felony. But this is just the beginning. This is the tip of the iceberg. Fannie Willis is, and you remember the grand jury floor when he said it's going to be massive. 11,780 votes, find me, and it's okay if you guys adjust them on tape. On tape. So everybody's been saying, why did she even wait so long? Because that's a prima facie case, and it's tragic that that's what he tried to do with not only Georgia, but Wisconsin and Pennsylvania.
Let me just bring Sebastian in on that particular point. Sebastian, is it the case, I mean, Robert Weiner is making the case here that this is connected specifically to the election, and therefore it must be considered a felony rather than a misdemeanor. Do you accept that point?
Well, first things first, happy Easter to you, Andrew. No, I don't know who this person is, but he needs to calm down. Clearly, he hasn't taken his medication today. Let's just put the events of this shameless event in Manhattan into a broader context. There's something called a fact pattern in a court of law. Well, let's look at the fact pattern of the last 6 years. There have been repeated attempts to use the legal system, the judicial system, and even the intelligence community against President Trump. First, we had Crossfire Hurricane. First time ever 3 intelligence services were used surreptitiously to target a presidential campaign to no avail. Then we had the overt Mueller probe, $30 million, 20 months, former director of the FBI, attempted to prove some kind of spurious Russia collusion, utter complete fail. When that didn't work, we had impeachment 1, impeachment 2. The Democrats were so deranged, Andrew, they tried to impeach my former boss after he left office, which is a little bit sick because impeachment is used to get somebody out of their elected position, not after they've left the position. Then we had the January 6th Farrago, the witch trial, and then the actual raid by armed agents of the president's private home in Mar-a-Lago. This is just the latest iteration. And when it comes to this individual, let's be clear, Alvin Bragg is a political meat puppet of George Soros. George Soros gave $1 million to the foundation that then gave Alvin Bragg $1 million after he did what? After, in a New York radio show interview, Alvin Bragg said, "My number one goal is to put President Trump behind bars. This is a political hatchet job, and everyone in America knows it." Why? President Trump's popularity is bigger than it's ever been, and he's already raised $12 million since the indictment.
And Sebastian, I'll just clarify for viewers at home that Alvin Bragg is the DA who is leading the charges here. Can I just bring in Robert Weiner here on that specific point? Would you like to respond to what Sebastian Gorka has said there?
Well, actually, 64% of Americans support the indictments. But the point here is that there are so many facts that Sebastian, in his low-key, calming way, trying to con the American people while he's being so calm, the Mueller statement was that he could not prosecute, he could not indict because the Justice Department memo said he couldn't, but he had a full hundreds of pages of specific links to Russia by Trump, as well as the obstruction in the first case. He weaponized when he fired Comey, the FBI director. He fired McGuire, the FBI director. He wanted to put in a new attorney general, and even his own staff balked and said everybody would quit if you did that. So the only one weaponizing, because he was the one who committed the crimes, was himself trying to weaponize so he would be able to cover up what he did. It was tragic for America, and that's why he's a three-time loser since 2016, by the way, in the 2020, in the off year, in the off year, in the Kansas race, in the Wisconsin race, everywhere. The issue has been not Trump, and this is going to continue now.
But Robert Weiner, are you not concerned slightly that this seems to be playing into Trump's hands in many ways? You know, he talks about the narrative of how he's being victimized by the deep state or whatever, and this looks like, I mean, apparently his polls are going up off the back of this. Does that concern you?
Not by independents and not among Democrats. He's got a little sliver of 20 to 30%, and those are among Republicans, where even a third of the Republicans are against him. You know, Liz Cheney didn't come out of nowhere. And Raffensperger won. He's laughing, so he can laugh. Raffensperger won in Georgia. Raffensperger, the guy who got the tape of the find me 11,780 votes, he won by 20 points in Georgia. So this guy is the worst thing that's happened to the Republican Party. He's a disaster for them. I'm not against Republicans. Chuck Grassley's a friend. I really respect Reagan and Bush as the president. I worked in the Bush administration after the Clinton administration. They kept me because of my bipartisanship. So I'm not against Republicans, Sebastian. I'm against this one. I used to think that Richard Nixon was the worst president, but in my lifetime, Donald Trump is far and away the worst. I'm
going to have to bring Sebastian in here because you were laughing there. What were you finding amusing?
All of it. I think we've found, congratulations, Andrew. I think you've found Trump derangement syndrome, patient zero. To mention Liz Cheney, who was excoriated, recalled by her own party, and then lost in an election. That's the person who's a great Republican who was utterly trounced by her own side. Let me tell you how worried President Trump is. This is him yesterday in Miami at the UFC. He doesn't look very worried to me, does he? When it comes to Alvin Bragg, one more delightful thing about Alvin Bragg, if your viewers, and I don't think your guest knows this is a British program, so we're not talking to an American audience, your British viewers would like to know how much of a Stalin-esque, Stasi witch trial this is. Watch the brief, very outre press conference by Alvin Bragg, the district attorney of Manhattan, where a left-wing journalist, this is shocking, there's a random act of journalism, an establishment journalism journalist says, you say that these are all felonies, but these are misdemeanors. They're only a felony if the business transaction misstatement is used to hide another crime. Why don't you mention the crime, DA Bragg, in your 27 pages? And you know his answer is? He looks in the camera and says, because I don't have to. I mean, pure Stalin, pure Leventi Beria. Show me the man and I will find you the crime. America looks at that and they say, let me write another check to Donald Trump. It is an absolute farce.
OK, we're going to bring in Robert Weiner again here on this point. Do you think it is a feasible scenario? They've broken this up into 34 different counts. Each count potentially has 3 or 4 years in jail. Is it just the spectre of Donald Trump being in jail that is getting people excited? And do you think that is a likely outcome?
Well, first of all, about Britain, I love being on your show. I love talking to the British people. And Britain is the place where the parliament said, don't come over here, Donald. Do not come. We forbid you to come. And then the Queen or somebody or the Prime Minister said, no, he's coming anyway. But you remember that when the parliament actually voted to block him from coming. So that's one thing. But in terms of Trump and his shenanigans, he has committed so many that it's not just a matter, as I said, of this one case. It's going to blend. It's going to be a catacoming of charges because of the 5 investigations that are against him. This guy's, his time has come to roost, and he's about to pay the piper.
So your contention is that there are more things coming down the pipeline that we don't yet know about, and this is all going to come out in the trial. Sebastian Gorka, do you think that is likely?
We do know about them, actually. We actually do know about them because the grand juror spoke in the Atlanta case.
Okay, and one at a time, please, one at a time. Sebastian, what would you like to say to that?
I find it really weird that we're here to talk about criminal charges, and he's talking about the UK Parliament and the Queen, and he can't even get his facts right. I mean, this is the poster child. I don't know who this other guest is. The poster child for the insane Democrats. I mean, listen, the former Speaker of the House, who was just ousted, Nancy Pelosi, who for 4 years refused to recognize my former boss as actual president, called him the resident in the White House, because the Democrats so disdain the American people. They have become a party of the white bi-coastal elite. This woman tweeted out just a few days ago, Donald Trump isn't above the law, and he will have an opportunity to prove his innocence in court. Doesn't that tell you, Andrew, everything you need to know? This system actually inherited the British system's absolute non-negotiable. You are innocent until the government proves you guilty. And the former Speaker of the House is so deranged, she says, you get to prove your innocence. That's the Democrat Party today.
Let me put that to Robert Weiner. I mean, the phrase "prove your innocence" from Nancy Pelosi does suggest a misunderstanding of the legal system, for one thing. But don't you fear, just in terms of strategy, from a Democratic point of view, in terms of strategy, that playing into Donald Trump's hands in this way, as it has been perceived, probably isn't helpful, and maybe to lower the temperature on these debates so that people aren't so upset? I mean, you've come across as a bit upset yourself about it. Is that helpful?
Well, actually, Sebastian sounds just like the Trump lawyers, and 64 of the cases that went to court, Trump lost 64 of them. So on the election, in terms of the strategy, let me just say that when the media reports, as they did, 34 counts, lays them out, you can't have somebody like Sebastian just making up what this stuff is. It's there in fact. And it will be there in fact in the indictments in Georgia. It will be there in New York. It will be there in the Jean Carroll rape case. It will be there in the New York corporations like as I said, his foundation, his university were both shut down by the courts. And so when the cases come out, what I did was I sent to Biden a copy of a speech I gave at UMass, Democracy is in Peril, and we need to get out and vote. And he gave 2 speeches just like that, which were very persuasive to the American people. And that's what's going to happen, is that as the facts come out, the media will report the facts. They will report the bullets of the indictments. And as the January 6th committee, Sebastian, went forward, and I talked to Pelosi, and I told you it's got to be bold, it's got to be transparent, and it became that. As that happened, the numbers went down, down, down. Then it shut down for a couple months, and that's when I sent the stuff to Biden through Pelosi and through Biden's press people. And suddenly Biden gave these 2 speeches. I've known Biden forever. He's a longtime friend. And he was very persuasive in the midterms, and it helped enormously in the midterms to bring out the facts. So as long as the Democrats and the media bring out the facts against Trump, he will lose again.
Right. Well, let's just finally, before we haven't got much time, but Sebastian, I just want to ask you that. I mean, Robert Weiner making a clear case there. Nobody is above the law, and that will include someone who is a former president. I mean, that's fair enough, isn't it?
It would be if he hadn't been politically persecuted for 6 years. Look, I mean, I actually worked for President Trump. I don't send him copies of my speeches. This guy doesn't even work for President Biden, and he's sending him copies of what he said. What delusions of grandeur. Congratulations on finding this loon. I tell you something, they've been trying to destroy him since he said he's no longer a Democrat. They've tried to do it for 6 years. They have failed, and they will fail again. And I will enjoy sending you a copy of my speeches, whoever you are, once he's back in the White House as the 47th. Happy Easter to you all.
Well, thank you both ever so much for a robust debate. I really do appreciate you joining me for this show. Thank you. Well, that was a lot of fun.